Hey, Mr. Devine, let's focus. We got a lot of work to do today. Any questions about the quiz that I just returned? Taylor.
Can you just do number 2?
Uh-huh. Number 2 is a work problem, a shared work problem. So my formula for problem number 2 is 1 over alone plus 1 over alone equals 1 over together. Right? Some of you had numbers in the wrong spots. I'm confused by that. It says James can paint the picture in 5 hours. 1 over 5. That's James. If Terry helps, they can do it in 4 hours. That's together. They. How long will it take Terry alone? Now, I need to figure out what I can multiply by to get rid of a 5, an x, and a 4. That would be 20x. So when I multiply by 20x, 5 goes into 20 4 times. The x's cancel and leave me with 20. 4 goes into 25 times and leaves me with 5x. So 20 hours is x. Follow all that? Moses? No? Now, anybody else have a question about problem number 1? Is there a question about problem number 1? Should we go through that one?
Oh, I do.
Zach?
He's going to do it, I don't know.
This is amount times percent plus amount times percent equals amount times percent. So here we go. How much 54% should be mixed with 6 quarts of 45% to get a 49% solution? Now, Zach, here's my bucket. If I dump in X quarts and 6 quarts, what's in my bucket? Yeah. So I have 0.54x plus, what's that number, 2.7 equals 0.49x plus 2.94.
Yeah, I just said it.
Now, be careful, you have a calculator. 0.54 minus 0.49 is 0.05. Not 0.5, 0.05. And that's 0.24. So x ends up being 4.8. Anybody else have a question about that? Let's look at practice test 3. This is our last chance to get it right. Okay. Have you noticed the similarity in structure of the practice test? So we know exactly what it's going to look like tomorrow. Page 1. One massive, giant problem. how are you going to start this problem? Factor. So the top factors, minus 5 plus 1. The bottom, pay attention. You start by taking out a 2. There's a common factor. Take it out. GCF. You remember that. Now, what about this? That is x plus 1, x minus 1. Uh-oh, and what do you notice? We're going to have a hole. Have we had a hole every practice test?
Yeah.
Yes. So pay attention tomorrow. So we have x minus 5 over 2 times x minus 1. This is our new problem. Where is that hole going to be? Negative 1. The hole is at negative 1. Kids, it's like our mantra. It's always the opposite of the parentheses. Everything is always the opposite. So it's negative 1. Now, how do I find the y? Take the negative 1 and put it in for x. So that will be negative 1 minus 5 over 2 times negative 1 minus 1. So that's negative 6 over 2 times negative 2. So that's negative 6 over negative 4, which reduces to 3 halves. So I have a hole at negative 1, 3 halves. What else do I know about the picture? Uh-oh, we're in trouble. Tomorrow's the test. We don't know what else we know about the picture?
The horizontal.
There's going to be a horizontal asymptote. And where's that horizontal asymptote going to be? 0, 0. Watch it. It's not at 2. 1/2. Somebody said it. It's at 1/2. The horizontal asymptote is at 1/2 because you have 1x squared over 2x squared. 1/2. What about a vertical asymptote? X equals 1. Vertical asymptotes come where the denominator equals 0.
Does the 2 not affect that?
Nope.
You just do that.
Yep. It's the number that would make this 0.
So we got
1 minus 1 is 0. What vertical's at 1? Because I have an x minus 1 in my denominator.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
What else do I need?
An X and a Y intercept.
I need an x and a y intercept. And you may not know which one's which until you plot it, and that's okay. But you do know that you have to let x be 0 and you have to let y be 0. So I'm going to let x be 0. If I let x be 0, on the top I have negative 5, and on the bottom I have 2 times negative 1. If I put in zeros for x, so that's negative 5 over negative 2, that's 5 halves. So I plot the point 0, 5 halves. Where does that point get plotted? On the y-axis. So which blank do I write 0 5/2 in? Y-intercept. Now, I have another point where y is 0. So I'm going to solve the equation 0 equals x minus 5 over 2 times x minus 1. When I solve that, I multiply this over to here. What happens when I multiply by a 0? 0. So where is that point? 5, 0. Where did you plot that point? On the x-axis. So it goes in the x-intercept blank. Can you sketch it from here? Remember, they are going to be normal pictures. So it's going to have that shape.
On the y-intercept, how did you get 0 to equal x minus 5?
That's the x-intercept. I multiply both sides by 2 times x minus 1, Austin.
Yeah.
What happens when I multiply 0 times 2 times 0? It's 0. And those cancel, I'm left with x minus 5. Okay, 2a. Here we go on our inequalities. Listen to me. What are the two things I'm going to have in every inequality problem? When I see this symbol, I know I'm going to have a number line at some point. Not yet, but at some point I'm going to have a number line. And what else do I have to have? A 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a 0. I can't do anything until I have a 0. Now I need dots to put on the number line. What do I need to do to get the dots? Excuse me. I need to factor. Look here. Don't they both have an x? Let's take out the x. Two dots on my number line. They will be closed in dots. Where will those two dots be?
0.
At 0 and 2. Remember, a plane x is a 0. A plane x is a 0. Now I need to test a number, don't I? Yeah, I can't use 0 because it's a dot. So I'll have to do something different. 1 is fine. 1 is here. What does this mean before we get started? What am I looking for? I'm looking for negative. All right, let's see if we can be negative. If I put a 1 in, I get a that would be positive 1. And this would be negative 1. What happens when I multiply them together? I get what I want. So your answer is everything between 0 and 2.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have a question about A before we move on to B?
You only check all 3 parts if the square root is on a.
If one of these is squared, yep. You can always check all 3 parts. That won't hurt anything. It's just a waste of time in a problem like this. Okay, here we go. See this guy right here? It's another inequality. So what do I know is going to happen? At some point, I'm going to need a number line. And to get the ball rolling, I need to get a 0. So you just look at what I did here. Subtract that over. This is a little harder though, because it's a fraction. So do you remember what to do? Take this guy right here, you're going to turn him into a fraction by multiplying top and bottom by by x plus 5. Now do you remember what to do? One big fraction. Super. What goes in the top? X minus 1 minus 2x minus 10. Good job. Good job. Let's clean it up. Negative x minus 11. Now, I can tell real easily where my denominator dot's going to go. Negative 5. This kind of stuff confuses me. So over to the side, I'm going to set that equal to 0. So negative x equals 11 and x equals negative 11. So the dot's going to go at negative 11 and negative 5.
How do you write that?
I-
Like, I mean, in terms of or, is it always or?
I haven't, let me get the answer first, Moses. I don't have an answer yet. I know where my dots are in the number line, but what do I still need to do?
Test the points.
Test the point. And this time, we want greater than 0. What does that mean? Positive. So can we use 0 this time? Uh-huh. It's out here. If I put 0 in, my top would be negative, and my bottom would be positive. Does negative over positive give me positive? No. So that didn't work, which means this one does. So the answer again is in between negative 11 and negative 5. Moses, if your answer turns out to be something like this is what's shaded, that's when you say x is less than 5 or x is greater than 7. That is not what we do here because that isn't what happened. We got this.
How did you know to make the minus x minus 11 equals 0? How did you know to make that negative 11?
Because we always, if we can't tell, like this one you can just tell it's going to be negative 5. If you can't tell, set it equal to 0 and solve it. So I added 11 and divided by negative 1. That's how you know where to put the dot. Okay? You can do the same thing down here. Set it equal to 0. What does x equal? Negative 5. Well, that's wasted work. I don't need to do that. I can tell it's at negative 5. But you can do that with the top and the bottom always, if that's what you want to do. All right, now we have C. Another inequality. The good news is it's factored for us. The bad news is what? It has a square. Brittany's your hand up, sweetie? Which means I got my dot at negative 1 and my dot at 2. Everybody okay with those dots? But I'm going to have to check every space. And I want to be positive. All right, so here we go. Let's try negative 2. Don't make this hard, you guys. When you put -2 in here, you're going to be squaring it. So isn't that going to be positive? But putting -2 in here makes that negative. Does a positive times a negative work for us? Nope. All right, let's try 0. When I put in 0, I get a positive and a positive. Does that work? When I put in a 3, I get a positive and a positive. That works. Now be careful on this one. You might be tempted to say this, because you shaded everything past -1, right? Not everything. What got skipped? The 2. So if you want to say that, you can. But put a little comma and say except 2, because we skipped 2. Does everybody see that? If those dots were colored in, I wouldn't have to worry about it.
I'm sorry, why except 2?
Because the dots in this problem are open. That is not colored in, that is not included. So if you say x is bigger than -1, you would be including 2, and you can't, because it's an open dot.
What's the other way of saying that?
You would have to say there's 2 separate pieces. The middle piece and the end piece. All right, now probably the toughest problem on the test. Problem number, what is that, D? What makes this tough? Is it cute? Well, it's an inequality, so I know I'm going to use a number line, and I got to get 0, so I might as well move things around right now to get 0.
Can you factor by grouping?
I need to factor. And someone has suggested factoring by grouping, which of course I always love to do, but this one does not. So what do I do? Jake? Yeah, my guess and do synthetic division. Anybody feeling lucky today?
It's 3.
So am I doing -2 or 3?
-2.
-2?
I'm feeling lucky, Mrs. Wheeler.
I hope you are.
She's like,
Uh-oh. Somebody said 3?
Yeah.
regular
2.
2? There we go. There we go. We got a +2. Now, before I forget, this is what makes this problem hard. Before I forget, I'm going to come up to my number line and I'm going to put a 2 on it. Because 2 worked. I'm going to erase these bad attempts here. 2 worked. So I know there's a dot at 2 on this number line. All right, what do I do next? Take what you got left, which is x squared minus x minus 12, and factor it. How does that factor? -4 plus 3. So you know you're going to have a dot at 4 and a dot at -3 along with the dot at 2, right? but you need 3 parentheses. You have 3 dots. You need 3 parentheses. What's that third parentheses? What's the parentheses for 2? X minus 2. Perfect. And you want that to be bigger than or equal to 0. That's positive. Let's color in these dots. Positive. 0's right in here. 0 makes this guy negative, this guy negative, and that guy positive. Does that work for me? Negative times negative times positive. Is that positive?
Yes.
Yes, it is. So this works, which means this works. So Moses, I have a 2-part answer. I have everything between -3 and 2,
Would that be a
or everything bigger than 4. Any question about that? Okay, that's the toughest one. The rest are easy. Here we go.
Is that good in the other text?
Oh yeah, it's been on every practice test. Okay, here we go. This is easy after that. We need to multiply by something that will get rid of every one of these fractions. So we could multiply by 6x or 18x or 24x. I mean, there's lots of things you could multiply by. The smallest one is 6x. But you will get the right answer as long as you multiply by something that will cancel out a 3, cancel out an x, and cancel out a 6. Any number will work as long as it cancels those 3 things. So what am I left with here? 4x plus 24 equals 5x. So x equals 24. Done. Easy. Oh, notice, did I draw a number line?
No.
No, because why? That's an equals. Now, as I copy this down, because I want to get done with this, as I copy this down, I factored that denominator. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Everybody got it? Okay, so now I am going to do what? Same thing I did here. I'm going to multiply by an x plus 2 and an x minus 2. Because I need to cancel out both an x plus 2 and an x minus 2. Does this do it? Yeah, look, gone. What am I left with? X times x minus 2. Gone. What am I left with? Minus 1. Gone. Left with 2, x plus 2. Everybody see that? That is not hard. You can do that. So x squared minus 2x minus 1 equals 2x plus 4. What do I do with that? Somebody said make it pretty. To make it pretty, I put it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 2x and subtract 4. John, what do I do now? Yeah, I can factor. I could also use the quadratic formula, but this one does factor. Minus 5 plus 1. So what are my answers? X equals 5. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, I don't have any. Because why? Neither one of those would give me a 0, would it? So these are both answers to the problem. All right, now our word problems. Let's see if we can get them done. Back page, word problems. Here we go. Chandler can complete his econ project in 10 hours. If Maura helps, it takes 8 hours. How long does it take Maura alone? So 1 over alone plus 1 over alone equals 1 over together. Tell me what goes where. What goes here?
1 over 10. Or 1 over 10.
1 over 10. That's Chandler. Plus, what's Maura?
1 over x.
Maura is 1 over x. Because 8 is the time it takes them to do it together. If Maura helps, that means they're doing it together. Now, you got to multiply this equation by any number you can think of that will cancel out a 10, an 8, and an x. 80 is one option. It is not the smallest option, but who cares? It's an option. So we'll multiply by 80x. Other numbers will work. Just find one that will cancel out a 10, that will cancel out an x, and cancel out an 80. So we have left 8x plus 80 equals 10x. So 80 equals 2x, and poor Maura is working on the econ project for 40 hours.
Should have got a head start.
All right, one more. Amount times percent, amount times percent, amount times percent. All right, here we go. Let's fill it in. How much 53% solution? How much 53%? Does that look okay to everybody? Must be mixed with a 30% solution to get 12 gallons of a 45% solution. Now this is one of the tricky ones. You are putting these two together to get 12. Together they make 12. So how would you indicate how much of this you need if that's x? 12 minus x. Think about it. If you had these two buckets and they added up to 12, if you put 10 in this bucket, how much would you put in that bucket? 2. And how did you get 2? You took 12 minus 10. You didn't take 10 minus 12. You took 12 minus 10. So 0.53x plus 3.6 minus 0.3x equals, no idea. Should know that. 5.4. So it looks like about 7.8, was it gallons? Yeah. Anybody have a question about that? Okay, practice test 3 is done. We did not finish practice test 1 and 2. You need to finish those by tomorrow.